Hi, welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight, I'll be featuring the case of Jeffrey MacDonald. So let's go ahead and find out more. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Jeffrey Robert MacDonald was born on October 12th, 1943, in Jamaica, New York. When Jeffrey was in high school, he dated Colette Stevenson. Before graduating, he was voted most popular and most likely to succeed. He also won a scholarship to Princeton University. Not bad. While attending Princeton, Jeffrey resumed his relationship with his high school sweetheart, Colette. In the fall of 1963, Colette discovered she was pregnant, so she and Jeffrey got married. Their first child, a daughter, Kimberly, was born in April 1964. After Jeffrey graduated from Princeton, he and his family moved to Chicago, Illinois. There, he attended Northwestern University Medical School. In May 1967, Jeffrey and Colette welcomed their second child, another daughter, named Kristen. In 1968, Jeffrey graduated from medical school and completed an internship at the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, New York. Jeffrey then decided to join the Army, so the family moved to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There, he was appointed to the Green Berets as a group surgeon in 1969. Now, February 17th, 1970, at 3:42 a.m., dispatchers at Fort Bragg received an emergency call from Jeffrey. He reported a stabbing. Responding officers arrived to find Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen all dead in their respective bedrooms. Jeffrey was found next to Colette. He was alive, but wounded. He was immediately taken to the nearest hospital. Colette was pregnant with the couple's third child. She was lying on the floor of the bedroom. She'd been repeatedly clubbed, both of her arms were broken, and she was stabbed 37 times with a knife and an ice pick. Jeffrey's torn pajama top was draped upon her chest. On the headboard of the bed, someone had wrote the word pig in blood. Kimberly, who was 5 years old, was found dead in her bed. She had been clubbed in the head and stabbed in the neck with a knife between 8 and 10 times. Kristen, who was 2 years old, was found in her bed. She had been stabbed with a knife 33 times and stabbed with an ice pick 15 times. Jeffrey's wounds, however, were much less severe than the rest of his family's. He had various cuts and bruises. He did have an incision that caused one leg to partially collapse. But to be safe, he was admitted to the hospital and remained there for 1 week. Jeffrey told police that on the evening of February 16th, he had fallen asleep on the living room couch. He was later awakened by the sounds of Colette and Kimberly screaming. He started to get up off the couch when he was attacked by 3 armed male intruders. A fourth intruder, described as a white female in a white floppy hat, stood nearby with a lighted candle and chanted, quote, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs," end quote. The 3 males attacked him with a club and an ice pick. Investigators found this suspiciously reminiscent of the recently publicized Manson murders. During the struggle, Jeffrey's pajama top was pulled over his head, and he used it to fend off thrusts from the ice pick. Jeffrey said he was overcome by his attackers and was knocked unconscious in the living room at the end of the hallway that led to the bedrooms. When he awoke, he stated that the house was silent. He could no longer hear the screams of his wife and daughter. He went to his wife, Colette, but found she was already dead. So he covered her with his torn pajama top. He then went to check on his daughters. He told police he made attempts to resuscitate each child, but they were also already dead. He then went to the bathroom to check on his own wounds, washed his hands, and then after that is when he called the operator asking for the military police and an ambulance. The Army's Criminal Investigation Division, known as CID, immediately did not believe Jeffrey's story. The physical evidence did not support the account of what happened. the living room where Jeffrey had supposedly fought for his life against 3 armed assailants showed little signs of a struggle apart from an overturned coffee table and a plant. Fibers from Jeffrey's torn pajama top were not found in the living room where he claimed it had been torn. Investigators did find fibers from the pajama top, but they were under the body of his wife, Colette, and they were in Kimberly and Kristen's bedrooms. One fiber was even found under Kristen's fingernail. Investigators found the murder weapons out back, and 3 weapons were determined to have come from the MacDonald house. The tips of surgical gloves were found beneath the headboard where the word pig had been written in blood. These were identical in composition to a supply of gloves that Jeffrey kept in the kitchen. The MacDonald family also all had different blood types. This was able to allow CID agents to track what happened in their apartment. Investigators theorized that the fight began in the master bedroom. They speculated that Colette hit Jeffrey in the forehead with a hairbrush, and then he got angry and retaliated against her by beating her with a piece of lumber. Kimberly had come into the bedroom and was struck in the head, possibly by accident. Her brain serum was found in the doorway. Jeffrey, now believing his wife was dead, fatally wounded Kimberly back to her bed. He then stabbed and bludgeoned her to death. Investigators had discovered Kimberly's blood on the pajama top of Jeffrey's, but he said he hadn't been wearing it in her room. Next, they theorized Jeffrey went to Kristen's room. Colette at this time, however, most likely regained consciousness and stumbled in and threw herself over Kristen's body to protect her. Colette's blood was found on Kristen's bed covers and on one wall of the bedroom. So Jeffrey killed Colette and Kristen, afterwards wrapping Colette's body in a sheet and carrying it back to the master bedroom. This left a footprint of Colette's blood on the way out. CID investigators then believed Jeffrey attempted to cover up the murders by using article ideas from the recent Manson family murders. In fact, there was a copy of an Esquire magazine that was featuring a write-up of the Manson family that was found in their living room. He took a scalpel blade from his supply from the hallway closet and went to the adjacent bathroom and stabbed himself. Jeffrey then put on his surgical gloves from his supply and went to the master bedroom. He used Colette's blood to write pig on the headboard. Finally, they theorized that he placed his pajama top over Colette and repeatedly stabbed her in the chest with an ice pick. Jeffrey used the phone to call for an ambulance, discarded the weapons, and laid by the body of his wife while he waited for police to arrive. April 6, 1970, Army investigators interrogated Jeffrey. May 1st, 1970, the Army formally charged Jeffrey with the murders of his family. July 1970, an initial Army Article 32 hearing into Jeffrey's possible guilt was convened. Jeffrey's defense attorney focused on the poor quality of the CID investigation and the existence of other suspects. They presented evidence that the CID had not properly managed the crime scene and lost critical evidence, including skin found under Colette's fingernails. In addition, he claimed to have located the woman that Jeffrey had seen the night of the murders in his apartment. They said her name, Helena Stokely. She was a well-known drug user that lived in the area. Colette's stepfather, however, Freddie Kassab, supported Jeffrey and stated at the hearing, quote, "If I ever had another daughter, I'd still want the same son-in-law," end quote. November 1970, Colonel Rock issued a report recommending that charges be dismissed against Jeffrey because they were not true, and recommended that civilian authorities investigate Helena Stokely. However, the post commanding officer, upon reviewing the Article 32, determined that there was insufficient evidence to proceed, so the charges were dismissed on those grounds. Jeffrey received an honorable discharge from the Army and returned to his home state of New York. Once in New York, Jeffrey returned to work as a doctor. This, however, was brief because he moved to Long Beach, California, where there he was an emergency room physician at the St. Mary Medical Center. Colette's stepfather, Freddie Kassab, was now beginning to have doubts about the Colette, Kristen, and Kimberly murders. He was now beginning to suspect that Jeffrey was involved. Freddie was questioning Jeffrey's behavior after the murders. Jeffrey went on the Dick Cavett show to talk about the murders, and he made several jokes about the investigation. Jeffrey would call Freddie and claim that he and a group of friends had tracked down one of the killers and put him, quote, 6 feet under, end quote. Freddie also studied the Article 32 transcripts, and he became convinced that Jeffrey was in fact guilty, and he began a campaign to have a trial brought against him. June 1st, 1972. The CID submitted a report of approximately 3,000 pages naming Jeffrey as the chief suspect. The Justice Department had 30 days to review the matter, but they did not decide whether to prosecute or not at that time. So between 1972 and 1974, the case remained held within the Justice Department as they struggled over whether to prosecute him or not. However, in July 1974, a decision was made to prosecute. A grand jury was convened in August 1974. Flash forward to January 24th, 1975. A grand jury in North Carolina indicted Jeffrey, and within the hour, he was arrested in California. August 15th, 1975. 3 days before the trial was to begin, the Fourth Circuit of Appeals stayed the trial. January 23rd, 1976. A panel of that court in a 2-1 split decision ordered the indictment dismissed on speedy trial grounds. May 1st, 1978. An appeal on behalf of the government led to an 8-0 reinstatement of the indictment by the U.S. Supreme Court. So between July 19th and August 29th, 1979, in a North Carolina courtroom, Jeffrey was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder, and in the death of Kristen, 2 counts of second-degree murders for Kimberly and Colette. Jeffrey was immediately given 3 life sentences to be served consecutively. July 29th, 1980, a panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed Jeffrey's conviction on a 2-1 split on the grounds that the delay bringing him to trial violated his Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial. August 22nd, 1980, Jeffrey was freed on a $100,000 bail. He returned to work in Long Beach, California as the director of emergency medicine at the emergency room. May 26, 1981, the United States Supreme Court accepted the case for consideration. December 17, 1981, oral arguments were heard in the case. And on May 31st, 1982, they ruled 6-3 that Jeffrey's rights to a speedy trial were not violated. So Jeffrey was rearrested and returned to prison. January 10th, 1983, a further appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was refused. So January 12th, 2006, Jeffrey was granted leave to file his appeal. But why? This was based on a recent sworn affidavit of Jimmy Britt, a decorated retired United States Marshal. He states that he heard the material witness of the case, Helena Stokely, admit to the prosecutor of the case, James Blackburn, that she was present at the MacDonald residence at the time of the murders. However, the prosecutor threatened her with prosecution if she testified. The Fourth Circuit of Appeal granted Jeffrey's motion for a successful habeas petition and remanded the matter back to the district court for a decision. March 10th, 2006, the DNA test results did not match Helena Stokely's nor her boyfriend, Greg Mitchell's DNA. A limb hair found stuck to the bloody left palm of Colette MacDonald's matched the DNA profile of guess who? Jeffrey MacDonald. All this time later, Jeffrey is now still currently imprisoned in Cumberland, Maryland at a federal prison. That is the case of Jeffrey MacDonald. Thank you for sticking around for another episode of Danny After Dark. This one sure had a lot of twists and turns and a lot of appeals, but we got through it. Do you have any questions about the case? Leave it down below. Let's be interactive. Do you have a suggestion for a case that you'd like me to cover? Leave it down below. You may see it featured in an upcoming episode. Until next time, remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us.